Hi, welcome to Revive and Rise. This is your host, Melody Parrish, and I am here with a very special guest, Cassie Wilborne. She's a beautician from Suffolk, Virginia. Hi, Cassie. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hello, you're welcome.
And I wanted for African American History Month, we want to talk about racism and trauma. So, however you want to start this conversation, whatever you feel like comfortable sharing, have at it.
Okay. Um, so May 4th, 2020, I was in a car accident, a head-on collision. I fell asleep behind the wheel from doing hair all day, being tired. So hit this lady, you know, I busted my colon, my intestine. I broke my, sorry, I broke my wrist, my ankle, my leg, had bleeding on the brain. And then, I went through my recovery process. Then I got what is it, served, I guess. And they
Mhm.
came to my house telling me, to come to the police station. So I was already, going through my recovery. So I wasn't thinking that I was not in trouble, but I didn't know that I had got in trouble behind the accident. So when I finally went to the police station to see what the papers was about, they arrested me and was like I had a warrant out for my arrest and all of this. So I was like, okay, like, whatever. So I go, so um because somebody got hurt, it was considered a felony and all of that. But she only like broke her nose and her ankle. No, she didn't die or anything like that. It wasn't too much, life threatening for her. Um so I was just battling, going through the court, you know, for trial and all of that. So I finally went to trial, and when everything was over, she was saying how I was the reason she couldn't have kids, just selling it basically. And the judge, he gave me 10 years, now suspended, and I had to serve a year in jail. So um, that's really all I got. Do you have any questions?
So you had a traumatic brain injury from your accident. Did you feel at any time that the accident or your conviction was racially profiled at all?
Um, I feel like it was only because, nobody died, you know, nothing really major happened, if that makes sense. And he gave me the maximum for like the reckless driving charge that they put it under, and what else? Proper brakes. It was like assault and battery. The car was the weapon. It was just a lot. So I just feel like it didn't deserve the max that, the charge held. It was 30 days, 0 to 30 days to 10 years. And he just went, even though he suspended the time, but I felt like he gave me the max. So it's like, was it because, I was a young black lady, or, you know, it makes you kind of wonder. So it felt like that at times, but just try not to think about it like that, try to push stuff to the side. But when you think about it, it sounds about right.
Yeah. And you're always having to think about that, right?
Yeah,
If things are racially motivated. So
right.
what
Especially since it's out there.
yeah. So what's it been like growing up as an African American woman and the things that you face, and then you're actually an entrepreneur now, and I don't know, in the business world, do you find that there are racial and gender based profiling?
Um, well, with my profession, not really, only because, people choose me. So
Mm.
it's like, not too many racial. I mean, I have did, Caucasians here, braiding their hair, but there's some. Growing up, I was, being a kid. I'm not that old, but being a kid, my eyes wasn't open to it because I'm young. I wasn't raised to look at people different, so it didn't really affect me when I was younger. Only because I was always in not majority black places, but I just didn't have too many interactions growing up. So it's like now I don't have. For instance, not too long ago, I was at a graduation party, and it was in Norfolk near like this very expensive hotel, and we had to go through the hotel to get to the parking garage. So we was knocking on the door. It was cold, and this white couple, they got off the elevator. They literally turned around and kept walking. Going down the hall as if, well, y'all don't have a key, so why would we open the door for you?
Oh,
So
wow.
it took for another couple to come, and we told them what happened, and they couldn't believe it themselves. But that opened my eyes to, racism is still out here. That was like my first ever interaction with it. And that was like December. So that
Mhm.
was very recent. But like I said, growing up, I was too young to really pay it any mind. But now, since I had that experience, it's like, okay, it's real.
Oh, yeah. Now you see it since you're
Yeah,
older. Yeah, because children, they don't really feel anything like that, right? You're a child,
right.
you don't understand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you just trying to figure out life yourself. You're not trying to figure out other people first. You just experiencing your own life.
yeah, yeah. That's right. So, yeah. What else have you experienced? Like, I guess being an African American, I know there is that oppression, um, that's just born in it, you know. And I had a guest a few days ago that had the same experience you were having. That grew up and didn't think anything. She said that she was in an all white high school, and she was the only African American, so she didn't have any idea that things were different and there were little microaggressions
Right,
kind of going on. I think she even said that her best friend at the high school would had a nickname for her, but it was very derogatory, and she didn't clue into it until after she became an adult. So it, I understand, where you don't really see those kinds of things. But
right.
since you have become aware, have you noticed anything um, different, or any of the struggles that sometimes people will talk about, um, as far as those kind of things?
Um, it's only hard because I'm pretty to myself. I try not to think like that, but I'm just trying
Mm,
to. Well, okay. For instance, I have two. So when I was in northern Mass, like Massanutten area, I had
mhm,
went to a Goodwill. So when I came in, nobody greeted me. They was kind of, looking. I didn't pay it no mind because I'm in the Goodwill. I'm not thinking about nobody. Like, maybe you didn't see me or maybe, I didn't hear you.
mhm,
So as I'm shopping, a gentleman walked in. He was Caucasian and they greeted him. So I kind of looked like, hmm, nobody greeted me. So once I go to the checkout, Still, it was no greet. It was just ring up, ring up, ring up. So in my mind, I'm like, you don't want to talk to me. I'm not going to talk to you. That was just me. I mean, probably wasn't nice, but I already felt like it was because of that. I don't want to reach out more than you was just to keep it, you know, level. So
Mhm.
as I was finished, and it's like at the end, soon as it was time for me to pay, that's the only interaction I got. Like
Oh.
him telling me total, I paid when I left. It wasn't a have a good day. I said
Mm.
it out of that's just what I'm used to saying. So when I left, I was like, they racist up here. I was
Mhm.
like, maybe it's just the area because it was majority white in the whole area, really. So that was one situation I walked into, and then another one. I go to the tractor supply and I go and get my propane and stuff like that. And sometimes you see more white people in the tractor supply, but the lady at the register. So when I was checking out, I had my cat litter, my cat food, all of that. So she's ringing it up. So I had my cash in my hand because I had it balled up. I had just got off of work. My
Mhm.
money was just everywhere. So I'm like giving her the money as I'm not as I'm finding it, but as I'm getting it together. So at first I gave her like the total was like 52. So I gave her 20 first, then I gave her two tens, then I had, was looking for the $2, I gave her that. So as I'm looking for another dollar for the change, she's like, this isn't enough. So I'm like, I'm getting the rest. And then she's like, oh, my bad, you're rich. I believe you. You're rich. I'm just like,
Mm.
where does that come from? I'm looking for like 46 cents. How am I rich? Like, I was just like, are did that come from at first you was like, it's not enough, thinking I didn't have enough? Or, I felt a little some type of way about that. But like I said, I try not to overthink things because if your mind is always thinking it, you're gonna feel like if you go into a place where it's a bunch of the opposite race, if you're thinking, oh, they're racist, it's gonna put you in like a racist mode because you're trying to defend your racism, you know, making sure, you know what I'm saying? So it's like
Mhm. Mhm.
I just try not to think about it. But since I just thought about it, it's like, oh, okay, I have had interactions. But normally I like brush it off my shoulder because can't change it. It is what it is. Nothing's gonna change once I leave. So yeah, that's about the only times I can remember. That was like last week.
Yeah. And it's these little microaggressions that kind of go unnoticed. Like you say, it's just the way things are. But it doesn't have to be that way because those little things kind of grow, right?
Right.
And so what kind of things have you experienced with your traumatic brain injury? Because I have a traumatic brain injury as well.
Like just like my little, not my symptoms, but things that have changed after.
Mhm.
Um, I don't have too many long term memories. Like,
Mhm.
well, okay, for instance, like how you're talking with your cousins or your friends, you like, remember when blah 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 blah. And I'm like, no. And they're like, yes, you do. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I'm not. I tell them I'm not saying that it's not true. I just don't remember. Or like, for instance, I have. Okay, I can do a little bit of short term memory. But it's
Mhm.
like if you ask me what I did yesterday, it's like I gotta think a little harder. What did I do? Then I probably say like two things I did out the whole day, which is like over, the things that you do repetitively, but like little. minor details. I tell stories over and over again. Be like, not in the same day, but
Mm,
forget that I told you, or people will tell me about a function, and not say I forget, but I forget. Then when
mm,
they tell me about it, I'm like, you didn't tell me that. You didn't invite me. You did, and I'm like, okay, like it's like I noticed my memory different,
mm,
and I don't know if my whole accident caused it, but now I have like mental issues, like I'm on medications and all of this, not mental health, everything like PTSD, insomnia, like there's
mm.
a lot. So I don't know if it's from the brain injury or if it's from just the whole experience, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But yeah, that's the only thing I can really recall that might have came from that. Yeah.
Yeah. Were there any physical impairments or your speech or anything of that nature?
Um, my speech was never affected, but I do have rods and screws in my ankle. Um, I can't bend my ankle. I can just like my ankle doesn't bend at all. So it's just like positioned 90 degrees. So I do have like a limp, a permanent limp. Um, yeah, just that's about the main thing that not bothers me a lot, but that's that. What else? Other than like scars,
Mm.
um, kind of forgot what you asked me. I forgot what I was answering. Honestly, okay, you asked me was there any physical?
Any physical, yeah.
Yeah, just that my ankle and my rod. Because actually, I found out not too long ago from the physical therapist that actually they wanted to amputate my whole ankle down, but it
Oh,
took for one doctor to, say I want to try. You
right.
know, I want to try something.
Mm,
So the other doctors, when I hit my main artery, there was no post in my foot, you know. So I do thank that doctor for trying. And even though he gave me just enough to be able to walk and have a foot,
yeah.
grateful. But I do struggle every day with just pain or in the morning. Takes me a
Mm,
long time to get to the bathroom. Like after a long day of work. Sometimes when I stand up, I don't know how my leg is gonna act. Like I can go from walking regular to one little trip of the touch of the, anything
mm.
that disturbs my ankle, then I'm limping. So it's like if I trip and I hit my ankle, no more walking good for a little while, limp it out, but that's about it.
And you said you have pain. It
Yes.
just in that foot and leg or other places?
Just mainly all day in my ankle. I have sometimes where my stomach does like this little, I don't want to say a scratch, but I don't know. Okay, Charlie horse. You know how you have a Charlie horse in your leg? Sometimes my stomach does it because I did had to get my colon and intestines rerouted. So it's
Mhm.
like some days it's like, oh, I'm catching a cramp, that I
Oh,
didn't have before my accident. So
mm,
it's like I really can't explain it really, but then my wrist, like it bends,
mm.
but not completely like a
Oh,
normal wrist. But yeah, that's about it. I'm just grateful and just go. I'm just adjusting. That's what it is. I'm adjusting to my new life or, my new me. So yeah.
yeah. It shows the adaptability of humans. That
Right.
like you adapt to it, and now you're just a very successful beautician.
Yeah. Life keeps going.
You do. And an entrepreneur, that's a lot because many people don't do those kind of things. People are scared to venture out. Um, can you talk about that fear? Did you have fear when owning your own business?
I went through a long um time period of okay, so for instance, when I went to jail, of course you don't do nothing in jail. So when I got out, it kind of did make me feel less of a person. So I went from having confidence to not having confidence. So I set out for like 2 years from any kind of work because, I was scared of the pain, I was scared of this, or just scared to not be around people. But it was like I closed myself out from a lot of things. So when I did want to work, I didn't want to go to a company or anything because some days I have my days where my body just isn't with it. So when you can't call out too much out of work. So that's what made me want to become my own business
Mhm,
more because it's like I can control my days more. Like I can give myself more rest days. Like I don't have to work somebody else's schedule. I can say I'm only going to work 4 days to give myself 3 days to rest. So
mhm,
that made it better. So then I wasn't accepting new clients because I just not didn't want to be around new people. But you get closed in. When you're comfortable, you don't want to be uncomfortable.
right.
So I just started to accept, you know, more clients and just trying to connect, but not, you know what I'm saying? Like I just had to think about it. It's not bigger picture is I don't want to say it's about money, but it's just what I had to do. It's either get over your fears or have no job. Basically. So, and then all of the jobs that I was trying to apply for, like, sit down jobs, my felony was coming against with like when they do background check. Sometimes as soon as people see felony, it's like, I don't even care why you have the felony, you're a felon. You know what I'm saying? So it's like with certain jobs I was trying to apply to before I just went out to be my own business, I wasn't getting. And normally the jobs that felons do, you know, that
Mhm,
are available, more accessible, whatever, is like fast food or warehouse, hard labor work, which
mhm.
unfortunately I can't do because of my injury. So it was like I had to basically to be successful. I had to.
I see. I see. And you were in prison for how long?
Well, luckily because of COVID, prison didn't have to come and pick me up. So I spent my time in jail.
Yeah.
So I had to be there for 9 months because when it's your first time, you only do like a percentage of your time. So because I only had to serve a year, because the other time was suspended, I only had to be there for 9 months. So I was there from July 7th, 2021 to April 22nd, 2022.
So it in the whole scheme of things, it's not like you were in jail for that long of a time, less than a year, and it still had this big drastic effect on your life. Um,
Yeah,
because you couldn't get a job, which forced you to find other means of income.
right.
Uh, can you talk about um, like how you feel or how you've been received or treated when people do find out that you've been in jail or even in the jail itself? Um, if you were treated
Um,
different.
Before I went completely on my own job wise, I was working at Great Clips for like 2 months. So during my interview, they never asked about incarceration.
Mm,
So, I was told don't volunteer any information, when
mm,
they didn't ask you. So just working there, just talking, how you get to know your coworkers and your managers. So in
mhm,
conversation, I think jail had came up, and I'm a very honest person. You know, if we're having a conversation, I don't mind, sharing. So when it came up, she was like, "Oh, I wish I would have asked that during the interview." And it was like, "Hmm, you know, what do you mean? Would it have been a different answer to whether I was hired or not if you would have known during the interview, or stuff like that? Or if I tell somebody like, I can't believe you went to jail, it's just once people heard you went to jail, every time people heard jail, they just think, oh, you're a bad person, you did something, or whatever. So even in jail, when the other inmates were hearing why I was there, they was confused. Because when I was there in there, they was like, why are you in jail? Basically off of like my personality and stuff like that. They're just like, why are you here? What did you do? So when I tell them, it's like everybody say they put you in jail for that,
mm,
So everybody kind of see that. I'm not gonna say that it was wrong because somebody did get hurt. I'm just saying they can see that it wasn't fair. That makes sense because I didn't intentionally do anything.
right, right.
It was
And
my first
and they
offense, all of that. Like I never got into trouble. I don't have no record. Barely got tickets. So it's not
mhm,
like you know I was a red flag. And then I forgot to share this part. When I first got arrested and you do the bond out, when I went to
mhm.
the magistrate.
Oh,
Magistrate?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm,
So they the ones that, give you your bond. So the Commonwealth basically, okay, they was like, Commonwealth says no bond, you're a danger to society. But he was like, because this is your first offense, I'm gonna give you a bond of $5,000. Because I guess their job title, they have the power, see if what they want to do. But
mhm.
the Virginia Commonwealth said no bond, danger to society. So, when I heard that, like, I'm a danger to society. They put it not put it on you, but they label it. So
Yeah,
like now I'm a whole danger to society. So it makes me think if I was Caucasian, would I still be a danger to society?
right.
So
And especially since you had no previous record, they could have just taken your license or something like that. Even put you on probation if they wanted to go that route, but
they
not
did it
send
all.
you to jail.
I got put on probation for 2 years. I got my license taken, but I can finally get reinstated next year from my license.
Okay.
So I did kind of have them all. At least they didn't do it indefinitely. So I do appreciate that. So I just had to wait 4 years, to get them again. And I
Mhm.
only had to do 2 years of probation, but I completed all of that, and now I got one more year for my, my license. But through it was a long process to go through. I
Mhm.
had my days where I couldn't believe it. Even like now, I have days where it's like, you really went to jail. You really did this. This really happened because I had no memory even
Mhm.
of my accident. Like when I woke up, I thought somebody had kidnapped me and they was doing experiments on me. I just woke up to people on top of me, like,
Woke up
in the
in the
hospital.
Yeah.
So they had to tell me that I was in an accident. They had to tell me what happened. Like now, everything I know is from what people told me. I was conscious during the accident and, when they came and got me, but they say your brain blocks out certain trauma from to protect itself. So it's like that's where the PTSD kind of comes in that because it's like your brain is trying to figure it out. So when I am in a car, even now, like let's say, you know how the side of the road has the when you go over too much, it's like that
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
sends my body into like numb mode. Like once you do that, I'm just like this, like, oh my God. So when I am in the car now, it's like I don't try to be the driver, but I
Mhm.
talk the whole time like, going too fast, you're going over here, you're going this, you know. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Those kind of things can be scary. And can you talk a little bit more? I I do find it because I experienced it as well. You know, when I woke up, um, and seeing people around and not knowing, you know, where I was or what was going on. Could you talk a little bit more about that when you woke up in the hospital?
When I woke up, they had the the thing down your throat that helps you breathe when you're either, I guess, sedated or unconscious or anything like that. So when I woke up, they took that out. So I started panicking a little bit. They was just trying to tell me that I was in an accident. So I'm looking like, okay, I'm beat up. I must it must be true. So they let me call my mom. So when I called my mom, first words was like, I wasn't drunk. I wasn't drunk. Just letting your mom. I don't want nobody. Oh, you was drunk. And I was kind of not missing, but I got into an accident at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And my mom didn't find out until like maybe 12 or 1. Because like nightingale, all of that. I was in surgery for like 7 hours before my family even found out, you know, that I was in a car accident or whatever. So yeah, like I said, once I called her, once they told me what happened, basically they had to end my call because I remember them saying I was going back into the unstableness after they just got me stable, from panicking. And then after that, I was on the trauma unit floor for like 2 months. Um, my experience my experiences was good when I was in Norfolk General. Memories just came back when I had went to a hospital, Suffolk, called overseas. I was there, and first of all, they told me I had a what was it, an infection from like a cut, some kind of infection in my blood. So, but they had tested the wrong thing. They tested the dead skin on my cut. So it came back as a bacteria infection because of the dead skin, not my actual wound. But I didn't find that out until I was in the hospital for like what, 3 or 4 days getting all the antibiotics. So when the specialist came, he was like, don't have a infection in your blood. Basically it was wrong. So I have been treated all for 4 days for basically nothing. But in that time frame, I was okay. For instance, I was there. A nurse. We had a run in because when I was in the hospital, I had so much contractions on me that the nightgown, all of that, I couldn't handle that and what was on me. So I did spend a little time nude because that's just what made me feel better. So when my
Mhm.
family members came in, covered the major hot spots, but other than that, so my uncle had came and visited me, and there I have a very great family. I don't have to worry about my uncle seeing me and I feel, oh, uh, so the lady, she was a black lady. She was like, you need to cover your stuff up. You don't have respect for yourself, your uncle, da da da. So that kind of made me mad. So I was just, I could go deeper into the story, but the point of the story is I had wanted to leave the hospital, so they called security, because I was not fussing with the nurse, but fussing with the nurse. So when they called security, it was an older white gentleman. And I'm not gonna say he was racist because I don't like to say that, but I can tell when there's a little bit of animosity, if that makes sense. Like, and I know it
Mhm.
isn't because of us as people, just you know, you not liking me as me because I don't know you. So when I feel animosity with a stranger that's of a different race, my mind say, okay, they're racist. Like, you can tell by somebody the way they're speaking to you, how they're speaking to you, you know, that
Mhm.
it's a problem somewhere, somehow. So he was just speaking kind of like very rudely. Um, it was something else. I really can't. I remember, but I can't remember exactly what happened to make me feel like it was because of race. But
Mhm.
I just know that he was nasty. Like it just wasn't good from what I for what he got called for. A
Mhm.
patient fussing with a nurse, not fussing. I wasn't like throwing stuff. I wasn't being aggressive for you to come in aggressively, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. So
Mhm.
like I'm I'm basically gadget up. I can't do anything that will cause you not to use force, but aggressive
Aggressive
aggression in
speech.
the speaking, you know.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
made me feel some type of way because it was like, was it race? But other than that, all my other doctors, I had no problem with
Mhm.
none of them or nothing like that. So yeah,
Yeah. So it's interesting that you talk about that because you know you you can as a patient you can disagree with the nurses and I can't imagine being in your same situation or very similar. I can't imagine with all of these machines that are hooked up to you and your brain not really thinking very
or
clearly.
yeah,
I can't imagine that you were aggressive or forceful in any way that
yeah,
would in the disagreement that would cause that kind of thing. It seems like to me the gentleman saw an African American woman and just automatically reacted.
yeah. Especially since security was called. In his mind, it's like they had to call me, for you. So obviously you're doing something.
Right.
He didn't really assess the situation before he just bit,
Yeah.
bit, attacked basically. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much, Cassie, for sharing your stories with us. And and I really appreciate the vulnerability and the honesty
you're welcome.
and all the best to you in your business and in life. You're just such a lovely person and I really appreciate it and I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad I got you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and everyone just remember that you don't have to suffer alone and have a good day.
You too.